like to call our meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock p.m. and declare that we do have a board quorum present. If you will please stand, I will lead our invocation, and then our pledges of allegiance will be led by the Freeport Elementary students. Father God, we thank you for each and every day that you allow us to be a part of this great creation that you have. Father, just thank you for our district. Thank you, Father, for all of our kids, Father, all of our teachers, all of our staff, Father, all the folks who work to make this a better place to be a part of BISD. Father, just thank you for our community. I pray that you just feel this tonight, Father, that we would have wisdom, that you would grant us wisdom, God, to make the best decisions possible for our district, Father, and for our community. Father, in all these things we give you honor and glory. In your Son's precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good evening, Superintendent Massey, Board President Howard, board members, staff, and guests. It is my pleasure to bring our honors and our recognitions to all of you this evening. Our first recognition will be our athletes. We have athletes from Brazosport High School and Brazoswood High School. To announce these are our athletic director, Mr. Jay Zeller.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Mr. Massey, Cabinet, and our BISD community. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize and celebrate this outstanding group of athletes and their coaches. A special thank you to the parents and fans for their support and energy as these student athletes competed throughout the year, culminating at the state tournament. We're going to begin this evening with the Brazosport exporters and their coaches, Coach Adam Collins and Coach Beatrice Owens. You'll recall, I'm sure, that we were here this very time last year as the exporter swim program has done it again and even bested their 2023 season, outswimming the competition in District 12 4A and again in the Region 3 championships. These accomplishments earned them a trip to the UIL 4A state championships on February the 15th and 16th at the Josh Davis Natatorium in Northeast ISD in San Antonio. Now I'd like to recognize these young ladies and highlight some of their awards as well. First of all, this evening, sophomore Sophie Stowers. Returning to the podium again this year after earning 2 medals in 2023, Sophie once again swam her way to the medal stand. She is the 2024 UIL State Silver Medalist in the 100-yard backstroke with a time of 1 minute and 44 100. She was also the 2024 UIL Bronze Medalist in the 100-yard fly with a time of 58 seconds and 38 100ths. Her third place time in the 100 fly actually beat the UIL 4A record, which tells you how fast the top 3 swam. Next, senior Kelsey Myers, junior Bailey Broom, and freshman Avery Boswell. These three athletes combined with Sophie to punch their tickets to the UIL State Championships as well. The team competed well and finished the year as the 16th place team in 4A with a time of 2 minutes, 4 seconds, and 82 100ths in the 200-meter freestyle relay. Congratulations.
Great job.
Okay, staying in the pool but switching towns, and schools. Now for our Brazosport High School swim program, led by her coaches, Coach Robert Brown and Coach Kyle Hayner. And I've already apologized profusely in the back. My R's don't work the right way. Lady Buck Jr., Nuria Rivas Gonzalez outswam her competition in District 24 6A and again in the Region 6 Championships. These accomplishments earned her a trip to the UIL State 6A Championships on February the 23rd at the University of Texas Swim Center in Austin. Nuria represented Brazosport High School well, finishing 22nd in the state in the 100-yard breaststroke with a time of 1 minute, 8 seconds, and 2 100ths. We celebrate Nuria and her coaches this evening and look forward to continued success in the future. There you go.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Deputy Superintendent Brian Cole to announce our next recognition.
Good evening. On February 8th, students from Clute Intermediate joined nearly 100 students from all over the state of Texas at the Regional Great History Challenge competition at St. Anthony's Catholic Church in the Woodlands, Texas. 5 students from Clute Intermediate School qualified for the national competition that will be held on May 24th and 26th at the Hyatt Regency McCormick Place in Chicago, Illinois. Students had to compete in 3 rounds and 1 by-round of history questions ranging from ancient myths to modern history. The first to buzz in and answer correctly received a point for a maximum of 10 points per round. The students with the highest number of points after 4 rounds were invited to the nationals. Those students with us tonight are Tegan Mason, Ty Cervantes, and Macaulay Navarro. Unable to join us tonight were our students Elliot Hammett, Eleanor Means, and unfortunately Coach Nicholas Hines is home with a sick child this evening.
Congratulations.
social worker, Joanna Zapata, was recognized in February as a State Shining Star for her work as co-chair of the Brazoria County Community Resource Coordination Group. The award highlights Ms. Padilla Zapata's work for her dedication to making a difference in the community by connecting families in need with resources to support them. She was nominated by one of her peers in the Brazoria County Community Resource Coordination Group for her commitment to the families of our community. She was recognized during a virtual ceremony on Tuesday, February 22nd. Her nomination recognized her as a relentless advocate for families and a dependable resource for the community. Community Resource Coordination Groups state on their website that they are county-based groups of local partners and community members who work with parents, caregivers, children, youth, and adults with complex needs to identify, coordinate services, and support. When one group cannot meet all the needs that a family has, the Brazoria County Resource Coordination Group steps in to help coordinate their services. Thank you, Ms. Joanna.
Our next award is our Director of Human Resources, Jennifer Neighbors.
Good evening. I will be presenting our Spotlight Educator Award. The purpose of our VISD Educator Spotlight Award is to recognize outstanding teachers across the district. These teachers go above and beyond not only for their students, but their coworkers as well. They're knocking instruction out of the park, they're collaborative team members, and they support all learners. When I call your name, if you could come stand up at the front. Up first, we have Mr. Roberto Unterberger from Clute Intermediate. Mr. Unterberger teaches 5th and 6th grade bilingual reading, language, arts, and social studies. His campus and peers share that he's meticulous in his planning and provides students with high-quality instruction. He works with the campus's LPAC team and is their bilingual ESL department leader. He is always prepared and ready. His students and his team can depend on him, parents trust him, and he communicates well with everyone. He always has a smile and a positive mindset. The world needs more Mr. Unterbergers. Now from Stephen F. Alston Elementary, we have Mr. Sean McCabe. Mr. McCabe teaches 3rd grade math and science. His campus and peers shared that Mr. McCabe embodies the very best qualities of a teacher and a person. He does right by his students in giving the very best of himself and right by his peers in his willingness to support them in absolutely any way. Mr. McCabe never misses an opportunity to teach. If students are idle in the halls, walking to lunch, or coming in from recess, he is teaching math. Mr. McCabe provides a safe and engaging place for students to learn, and through his consistency provides a beacon of calm and experience for those around him. SFA is blessed to have him. Thank you both.
to introduce the elementary and secondary principals of the year. Ms. Andrea Ham is Brazosport ISD's Elementary Principal of the Year. Ms. Ham, would you please join Mr. Massey at the front? A few words about Ms. Ham. Principal Ham is serving as the principal of Madge Griffith Elementary School for the past 3.5 years. She brings 20 years of educational experience to her role. Before her leadership at Griffith, she was the assistant principal at A.P. Boyle Elementary, worked as a high school teacher for 5 years, and was a program facilitator for the Brazoria-Fort Bend Regional Day School for the Deaf for 8 years. Ms. Ham's educational background began with her foundation as a special education teacher and as a special needs program facilitator. She believes that these experiences have contributed to her current position as principal. Ms. Ham is fluent in American Sign Language and in Spanish and finds that speaking directly to the school's current deaf parents is quite fulfilling. Ms. Ham was named BISD's Assistant Principal of the Year in 2019-2020 while serving as the Assistant Principal of A.P. Boyle. Additionally, she has led Madge Griffith to become a PBIS model school for the past 2 years. Please help me recognize Principal Andrea Ham as the BISD Elementary Principal of the Year.
We're missing when he's in high school baseball. No, clear Brooke. Clear somebody. Clear somebody.
I like coordination colors.
Here we go.
One, two, three, and another.
And now for our secondary Principal of the Year, Mr. Keith Fuller. If you'll please join Mr. Massey and the board at the front. Mr. Fuller brings 18 years of experience in education to his current role, serving as a principal for the past 2 years at Rasco Middle School. He has demonstrated his dedication to creating a positive learning environment through collaborative efforts among teachers to ensure student growth. With a background as a teacher and coach for 9 years, followed by 7 years as an assistant principal, Mr. Fuller's diverse experience equips him with a solution-based outlook to any situation. Mr. Fuller actively contributes to the professional development of his fellow principals and district leaders, sharing past experiences and problem-solving skills during meetings, thus enriching the collective knowledge and expertise within the district. Please help me in recognizing Principal Keith Fuller as BISD's Secondary Principal of the Year.
Appreciate all your dedication.
This does conclude our recognitions for the month, but thank you all for joining us, and thank you, board members.
At this time, in accordance with BED Local, the board will provide an audience with individuals who have signed up prior to the meeting to address the board. Tonight, we do have one, Ms. Katie Young. If you will come to the podium. Mr. Atkins will serve as our timekeeper. For those required to speak, please note that comments are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 30 minutes total allotted for public comment. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint a representative to present their views before the board. The board will not entertain negative comments on individual personnel or students in public session. Patrons are encouraged to use appropriate campus and administration channels before bringing concerns to the attention of the board, and board members are not allowed to deliberate, discuss, or make decisions regarding on any subject not included on the agenda posted. Ms. Young.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me, and I am so sorry to have to follow all of those really great announcements. And as we all know, with lots of things to celebrate, there's hard work to be done, and I think there's more hard work to be done here at BISD. The reason that I'm here is my daughter asked me at the dinner table if she was a transgender. She heard this, was introduced to this concept at Rasco Middle School as part of a program called Bakota. This program is intended to be very positive. It is intended to introduce students to identification of bad behaviors, bad situations, so that they will learn how to respond in a healthy manner. They were provided a form that asked them their gender, and transgender was one of the options. Mr. Fuller was very helpful in providing copies of these documents. Should you want to see some, I'm sure that we can get them for you. As you can imagine, my 10-year-old daughter doesn't know what this means, and I know that this is a topic that many of us around the dinner tables are kind of navigating on our own, but at 10 years old, she was introduced to this at school. What I find most concerning is that no one in the school seemed to be aware of what was being presented to the children. I was also given a phone call from the Director of Guidance and Counseling with BISD, and she assured me that there's action being taken to prevent the form from being presented to the children, which is wonderful, and I'm very thankful for that. That shows the support of BISD and the strong adherence to the values in our area. But what she also shared with me is that the program Bakota, which is a third-party program that's contracted with our county, they're unable to change that form because they have private funding or it's state funding. There's some funding. There's strings that are tied to this money. And that's really what brings me here tonight, because the action has already been taken. The form is no longer presented to our children, and that's great. But I would like to ask the board to consider adding to the agenda a review of these programs that have access to our children, because you have more access than some of our parents, right? You're spending so much time with our kids. We're trusting these school educators and these counseling programs to help them grow in a manner that they are ready to grow, and you're supposed to be giving them all of the tools that they need, not confusing them, and I think we can all agree with that. So my purpose in coming tonight is that you would consider adding to your agenda a review of the programs to ensure that the funding that is coming in to our schools to provide these educational programs and the resources doesn't have outside strings that were voted in by people that don't live here and that don't share our values. Thank you very much.
All right. Next item that we have on our agenda is our consent agenda. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent agenda? We will also allow public comments from individuals that signed up prior to, if you have a comment about our consent agenda before we move forward. All right. Hearing nothing to be pulled, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Moved by Mr. Atkins. Do I have a second? Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Thank you. Next item that we have on our agenda are our action items. Public comment will be allowed before a vote is taken on each action item. Our first action item is the cancellation of District 1 trustee election. Ms. Rebecca Kelly.
Good evening. In accordance with Board Policy BBB Legal, it is my pleasure to present for approval the cancellation of the trustee election for District 1. The deadline of February 20th, 2024 has passed for a candidate to file for an application for a place on the ballot. Sections 2.052 and 053 of the Texas Education Code requires that the Secretary of the Board of Trustees certify in writing to the board that the following candidate for the May 4th, 2024 election is unopposed for election to office. The unopposed candidate for election to office for District 1 is Mr. Joe Reinhardt. Upon receipt of the Secretary's certification, the board may by order declare the unopposed candidate elected to office. Once this declaration is made, the May 4th, 2024 trustee election for District 1 is canceled. The next action item tonight is for the board to consider and approve the joint election agreement with the county on May 4th, 2024 for the trustee positions in District 2 and District 3 currently held by Mr. Jerry Atkins and Ms. Patty Sayes. So at this time, the administration recommends that the Board of Trustees accept the certification of unopposed candidates for other political subdivisions and approve the order of cancellation and declare that the unopposed candidate for District 1 be elected to office. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? From the audience?
I move for approval of the cancellation of the election for District 1.
All right, been moved by Mr. Shortner and seconded by Ms. Sayes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Thank you.
Two more years.
Next item that we have on the agenda will be our reports.
Oh, no, we gotta go on. We gotta have the election.
Joint election agreement and contract for election services with Missouri County. Ms. Kelly.
Yes, thank you. This one's in accordance with board policy in Chapter 791 of the Texas Government Code. A school district can contract with another local government. Missouri County is coordinating a countywide joint election for political subdivisions in the county and has provided a joint election agreement and contract, which is included in your board book. The joint election will be held May 4th, 2024, with the Brazosport ISD participating for the Board of Trustee election to District 2 and District 3. The district received application from the current board member, Mr. Jerry Atkins, and also from Claudette Tuggle for District 2. The district also received applications from current board member, Ms. Patty Sayes, and from Tiffany Koenig for District 3. Administration has reviewed the county's proposal to conduct a joint election and believes it is in the best interest of the district for the following reasons. The joint election will represent an economic savings since the cost of each voting location will be shared by all political subdivisions voting at that location. A joint election will provide convenience and consistency for voters by using existing voting locations that are familiar and by offering additional early voting locations. The joint election will be conducted professionally and in accordance with the law by the Missouri County Elections Department, with the exception of the non-transferable duties that will be retained by each political subdivision. So at this time, administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the joint election agreement and contract for election services, and that the board president and secretary be authorized to execute the final agreement. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
From the board? From the audience? Mr. Reinhardt has moved for approval. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Cuellar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Thank you, Brother. Next item that we have are our report. Public comments will be allowed on each report. Our first report is teacher incentive allotment update. Ms. Kirshner.
Good
Good evening, President Howard, Superintendent Massey, and board members. It is my honor to stand before you today to launch the Teacher Incentive Allotment Update for Brazosport ISD. Following the Texas Education Agency's recent endorsement of Brazosport ISD's local designation plan and pending corresponding approvals for individual designations, we are on the cusp of an exciting era where our dedicated teachers will soon receive the rewards of the state-funded program that will provide additional compensation tied to their earned designation. This is not just a win for our educators. It's a testament to your collective vision and effort related to the significant strides in our district's compensation strategies that now includes a pay-for-performance system. Before I pass the mic to Ms. Jennifer Neighbors for the detailed report, I'd like to pause and express our profound gratitude to her and Cinnamon High and the team members who have dedicated over 3 years of unwavering commitment to developing, implementing, and refining our TIA system. Their diligence in assessing data and preparing for a successful submission has been instrumental in achieving a fully approved TIA framework. Thank you for all of your support, and we look forward to the positive impact that this will have on our educators and, most importantly, our students. Ms. Neighbors, Ms. High, thank you both.
Right, well, I am excited to share some of our data for our TIA program. So, just a little background, which I'm sure most of you already know. Our TIA was developed by TEA with the intention of creating a pathway to a larger salary for teachers. There's 3 levels of designations a teacher can earn. An eligible teacher can earn, and that's recognized, exemplary, or master. TEA funds this additional revenue, so when a teacher earns the designation, it's actually being paid by TEA. Our designated teachers will earn anywhere from an additional $4,000 to over $20,000, and we're proud to be one of the first districts in our surrounding area to be fully approved and preparing to issue our first TIA paydays. So BISD's locally developed plan is very much meant to be inclusive. All teachers have the option, no matter grade or subject area, to work towards the national board certification. They're reimbursed for the cost of obtaining this certification, and once they receive this, they'll always hold a recognized designation status and earn the recognized pay level. Measures for designations, our district's local plan includes our teacher evaluation system, classroom student growth, and teacher attendance. The top 30% of eligible teachers will be designated. This 30% has the ability to flex based off of a hard cut score. The eligible assignments for the 22-23 data capture year, all teachers were eligible if they obtained their national board certification, K through 12 reading, 1st through 8th grade math, algebra 1 and 2, geometry, special education and class support teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade, and intervention teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade. A little bit of the TIA timeline. In April of 2022, our TIA application was officially submitted. That summer, summer of 2022, the BISD application was approved. 22-23 academic school year was our first data capture year, and that included kinder through 12th reading, 1st through 8th grade math, algebra 1 and 2, and geometry. And that was to include special education and class support teachers and intervention teachers in these areas. In fall of 2023, October 2023, our data was officially submitted with proposed designations and sent for a Texas Tech validation process. In February of 2024, we were officially informed that we had full TIA system approval, and we have received for the spring and going into the summer our list of designated teachers that were approved. The designations will be announced and allotments will be awarded in August. Also just want to add, during the spring and summer of 2023, we added an expansion to the application, and so 5th through 8th grade science teachers, and then biology teachers will be eligible in the 23-24, so this current academic year data capture. So our TIA finance breakdown, the anticipated allotment is approximately $1.2 million, and this is going to be funded by TEA. 90% of that goes to our designated teacher compensation, and that, again, teachers, depending on their designation in campus, earn anywhere from $4,000 to over $20,000, and they'll receive that annually for 5 years. During that 5 years, they also, if in a different data capture year, they do have the ability to raise their designation. The district receives 10% of that funding, and that can be used on anything to support the TIA initiative. So professional development, our appraisal system, personnel, and any of the TIA assessment costs. And then the district will actually be reimbursed for the evaluation fees that we had to pay for the proposed designation. When our information was sent for validation to Texas Tech, they have 4 different areas they look for in that process. And domain A is relation of ratings between teacher observation and student growth. Domain B focuses on relation of ratings between student growth and the value-added model. Side note, the value-added model, it relates to our screener that we use, the Star Renaissance system, and it's about collecting historical data to show years of student growth patterns. And then domain C is the consistency of ratings across campus and teaching assignments, and domain D is consistency of designation rates to statewide performance standards. So now we get to look at some data that is worthy of celebration. This is going to go over our eligible teachers and the number of our designated teachers. With our first data submission, there were 433 eligible teachers, with the top 30%, 133 teachers, qualifying for designations. You'll see higher concentration of designations at the elementary level due to elementary teachers making up 64% of that 433. So 279 of the 433 are elementary. With the earned designations, that means the teacher's certificate will hold their designation status, recognized exemplary or master, and they'll receive compensation annually for 5 years. So then one of the measures we look at is student growth. Students take a Star REN screener, and they're tested at the beginning, middle, and end of year. Students are required to show a full year's growth to be considered met or exceeded their growth target. All eligible teachers, you'll see on average 61% of students met or exceeded their growth target. Designated teachers, 81% of their students met or exceeded their growth target. So for the teacher evaluation component, the teacher evaluation component was evaluated using 2023 summative end-of-year ratings for domain 2 and 3. Domain 2 and 3 focus on instruction and the learning environment, and our BISD data reflects that teachers who earned a designation have a high correlation between their evaluation score and their student growth percentage. So next steps for TIA, for our 2022-23 data submission, which is what we just were approved for our designation, teachers will be receiving an email this week with their TIA pending results, and then that will also include National Board Certified teachers. TEA will notify BISD of specific TIA allotment values per teacher in late April. We plan to have a TIA celebration for the designated teachers in early May. Official TEA email to designated teachers will come middle of May, and then the disbursement of allotments comes in August, and then the district will actually receive the funding in September. So while we're awarding the 22-23 designations, we're working through the 23-24 data capture year. So it's a cycling process. Right now, as we get to the end of the year, we're going to finalize current academic year TIA data activities. So we'll have end-of-year screeners, and then the teachers' evaluation summatives. And then we'll do the data capture for the current academic year finalization. And this actually will include our 5th through 8th science and biology teachers in this data capture. TIA scores will be calculated for the current academic year. We'll determine proposed TIA designations, and then in October of '24, we will submit our final data package to TEA, and then hopefully by that February, we'll have a new set of designated teachers. The TIA team has worked hard to bring increased compensation to our teachers in alignment with the TEA requirements to make this opportunity available to all BISD teachers. BISD is excited to continue expanding the TIA locally developed system and eligible assignment areas for our teachers to continue to earn increased compensation through the system. So, do you have any questions?
Questions from the board?
I got a couple.
Okay.
So, 433 passed or completed the certification, the NC?
No, the 433 were the number of eligible teachers through the data capture, the teacher incentive allotment program. The national board certification is separate, and teachers, if they choose to, can work through that certification process. The district does reimburse the costs for that, but it is tied to the teacher incentive allotment through the state, because once they receive that certification, they will receive that recognized status on their certificate, and that stays there forever. It's not just 5 years. And they will receive the recognized pay at minimum.
Okay. Yeah, the lowest one. So, of the 133 that are going to get designated this year, will they go out of the pool next year, or will the same teachers be competing against them in order to get another 30% approved?
So they will not go out of the pool because their data still has to be captured. While their designation won't go down, they have the opportunity to earn a higher designation within that. But we also have the flexibility to look at where there are true cut scores in the data. And so if we have to increase it from 30% to say 40%, depending on the number of teachers who have that high student growth and high performance, then we have the flexibility to do that.
Can I just add as well, they'll add another year to that designation, so if they're resubmitted, so that,
Every time they get that 5 year?
as long as they continue to meet it.
Okay, good. And then where are we on additional subjects and things like that being added to? 'Cause I know they were looking for tests, and I think history was having some issues finding it at one point and things like that.
So this year we added science. There is not a new one at this moment for the next data capture year, but that doesn't mean if a screener isn't available that meets the state standards that we can't add that this summer.
Is the state helping us find one, or is that still up to us to find?
The state has some that they have suggested and approved, but that doesn't mean they cover all subjects.
Yeah, okay.
But we have the local
Control.
controls to
Yeah.
choose what we use.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Again, this is, out of the 800 teachers or plus, it's a start, and it's unfortunate that we can't include all, but let's take advantage of what we can, so it's a good start, so. Do we know the number of possible additional teachers from 5 to 8 science and biology? Just off the top of your head, just a guess? Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can get you that information.
Yeah, just
Oh, do you have it? It's less than 100.
less than 100, but it's still
We're
growing.
close to 100 more teachers.
Okay, good. We want to keep it growing. National board certifications, we only have 3, is that?
We have 3, but we have 2 more that are working through the process right now, and one is actually already a designated teacher that came to us from Galveston ISD, and she's a master's designated teacher.
How much approximately does this cost? I mean, and is that cost hindrance to getting to starting? You know, I don't know if the Education Foundation could float a loan or something to, you know, if that's a problem.
Are you talking about the cost of TIA in
No,
general,
the
or
certification.
the certification? I want to say, after all the certification tests and the actual program, I think it's about $2,000, but it's not all at once. There's different, they pay as they go.
Do we think that's a hindrance? I mean, we only have 5 or 6, is that, or is it, I mean, it's, the way I understand it, my brief look into that is it's pretty lengthy.
It's an intense program. It would be like maybe working on your master's
Yeah.
degree.
Some teachers do choose to, you know, seek their master's degree
Yeah.
rather than
Okay.
the national board, but since TIA, actually, we've seen a turn.
So, going back to a slide that I'm not sure was shown, but it was on our presentation, it's the, evaluating the student growth with the, yeah, there it is. So, this, with the 133 designated teachers, and we have an average student growth of 81%, what does that reflected in a year's growth? Is it 81% of the year, or?
That means, on average, for that group of teachers, there's 133, 81% of their students made a year or more's
Okay.
growth.
So it's, I've seen studies where 0.5 is a year's growth, and that's really confusing. So,
No,
okay.
if we look at to count for a growth, to count for growth for that teacher, they have to at minimum hit 1 year.
Okay, so in other words, 19% didn't quite make a year, but obviously it must have made some progress, so, okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting slide, I guess. I guess the thing that concerns me, and I'm sure we need to work on it, get some growth, is our intermediate school teachers, the numbers, you know, there is our highest award for masters is 24,000, 22,000, something like that, which nobody's eligible for right now. So it's, you know, it's a nice number to look at, but in reality, we're looking at you know, 6,000 to 8,000, something like that, based on the recognized, and in general, like you say, the majority is the elementary school, which is probably not surprising, but just the fact that hopefully this catches on, and TEA continues to fund, which, you know, who knows on that one.
And I think as we find ways to expand our eligibility, we'll see the secondary numbers grow as well, because we'll have more teachers in the pool for that.
Well, no, you know, we've got the math and science definitely in high school, so looks like that would be a good way. Yeah, I guess that's the only thing that I would like to see more numbers, because, you know, the dollars are there when you look at the recognized, and what's the other, recognized as
Master and exemplary.
exemplary. You know, it does go up, and so our higher EcoD numbers increases more money for those, and that's really would be a good function. The numbers there are a little bit lower than I would have hoped. We're gonna work on it. Okay, thank you.
So, do you think for an average teacher who's working on their designation, do you think that through the foundation or through however, do you think that finances is a reason, like the cost of it, that that's something that we can help teachers with? Is that keeping people from getting designated, and so they don't have the extra cash?
Yeah, we're reimbursing it already.
Yeah, we're reimbursing
You
for the
are
national
reimbursing
board
now?
certification, and they
Okay.
don't pay anything, like, the designation that comes from their student growth, they spend no money on.
Okay, I missed that then, okay. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't a roadblock.
No.
Okay.
From a classroom standpoint, I see this kind of like, to a degree, seniors not applying for scholarships because they don't want to do a little bit of extra work. That's that's something that our teachers and our administrators are working hard on now to try, I mean, we've got people wanna give them money to go to school, and they don't wanna put forth the effort to do that. And I'm not saying, but what I'm trying to say is, these teachers, our teachers need to know, number one, that we are reimbursing them. Number two, we're supporting them. And I think when they see payday the first time, that's gonna make a big difference. Jennifer, I have a question on, I know that we have a locally developed plan, and I'm sure there were guidelines from TEA that came along for us to develop this plan. What are the major things we took from TEA and that we didn't necessarily, go along with?
TEA's guidelines for developing the plan was, it had to include teacher evaluation, and it had to include student growth. And it offered a few suggestions on, student growth measures, and that was TEA's guidelines. So we have more control over our plan, but now the funding, that comes from TEA. They have to approve our plan that we turn in, so that's the part they are controlling. So we have flexibility that if we need to look at some modifications down the road, we can.
And one other thing, I noticed that the Texas Tech verification program, is that for every program in the state, or is that the one that we chose, or is that the one TEA has chosen to
That is
verify?
the one that, we have to send it to. That is, everybody in the state who's participating in TIA goes through that verification at Texas Tech.
Do you know how many districts have done this?
I mean,
This year, it kind of doubled. We're in like the 200, maybe close to 300 districts are now approved at the same place that we are. So, this is a big year. This is the biggest year. They doubled. And we were cohort E. So, I think in another year or two, it'll be, most all districts in the state will be participating.
Is this paid out as a bonus, or is this paid out as a divided by 12?
It's paid out in a lump sum in August.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Assuming the state sends us the money, I guess.
well,
And I
actually,
also want, I'll
They
say
fill
that.
up.
Missed the payment this year.
They reimburse you.
actually, we're gonna pay first. I think.
Yeah,
Based on the schedule, I think we pay it, and we get it in September, so.
Yeah, it's probably a little later than that. They
But-
add it to our summary of
You have to be
Yeah.
present to win.
You do have to be present to win,
Okay,
actually.
that's just,
But I think it's,
Present in the district.
yeah.
employed,
You do have to be currently employed.
and still
yeah. But I
And
think
still in
it's,
a TIA eligible.
I still think it's a good commendation for our HR group concerning, because I discussed this a little bit at our Gulf Coast Executive Board meeting, and I did not get any, oh yeah, we're doing that too, and this is Region 4. And so I know there's a couple, but the board members that were present at the meeting did not have much inclination of what it was. In fact, the gentleman from Needville said, I need to get with you so we can figure it. I said, well, get you a data person first. You know, that, you gotta have that, so. But, yeah, I think this, so, I definitely wanna point that out, because I do have a lot of contacts in Region 4, and it's kinda like, this is, we're, again, even though we're, well, I won't say a year, we delayed a year, I guess is the best way to put it. But I think it helped to get everything in this case. So basically, we're still ahead of the game on that one, so I think that's very good, so.
I know it's not your duty, or your job description. I think really now that we're at the culmination of the first money being paid out, and people like, especially in May, early May, that they'll know who on their campus did or didn't. I would like to see, if possible, for us to go to East Campus again and have campus meetings and go over this whole program with them again and let them see what's happening, and be sure that the teachers informed, because I guarantee you, I would have given up a week of golf every afternoon when I was teaching in the spring if I'd known about this. And so this is a big deal. It's a big deal for teachers.
But you guys did a good job of putting it out. I mean,
I'm not saying we didn't do a good job pushing it. I'm saying now's the time to jump on the wagon.
Reinforce it again?
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. We have plans for when teachers come back, to present
somewhat surprised that you said that the TA kinda gave us the guidelines and we're asking, bring in the data stuff.
But they denied,
Yeah.
They can approve
The
it.
data guy didn't portray the,
I just wanna add that because, like you said, we are ahead of the game, we're kind of leading it in this area, it also means that teachers are gonna wanna come here and work. They're gonna like see us as a district that they wanna work for because they have this TIA opportunity. The goal is to recruit, retain, and you know, and so that's good.
Good
We're
point.
gonna have these
Yeah.
teachers
Very
come
good
in.
point.
and highlight the plus side of the dollars
Yeah.
in certain, and for certain schools. I think that would be a good recruit.
So this has been added to our recruiting campaign. We are even going into our universities, but you'll also notice to see teachers, other districts across the state have realized teachers are wanting to move campuses to where those ECOD stats are higher. And so it puts some of your higher performing teachers in some of the schools where they haven't always had the strongest teachers. So you see some even movement to where
Well,
double that same designation.
I will be happy to see that when it happens.
One other thing,
Trying to be nice.
is there a minimum service time that before a teacher's, eligible for this?
There's not. They can be a first-year teacher, and if they have a high performance rating and their students meet the growth level, they could qualify.
Some of our first
So-
paid clinical teachers, when we approved that program, about 3 years ago, with your support, are actually designated this year.
That's what I'm saying, if a good job is done with the apprentice program, they should be able to jump quick right on. So we got all kinds of things.
I know this was a heavy lift. It's a great report, and, you know, I'm glad, but this was not something that just happened overnight.
That's right.
This is, like you guys said earlier, this has been going on for 3 years, 2.5 years, and so I appreciate all y'all's work, and, I know I've reached out to a few other people in other districts too, and, when we posted it the other day that we had 133, and they were shocked that we were doing it, and so, you know, I appreciate you guys doing that. It's a great thing for teachers. It's a great way to get additional pay, and we've done it probably 5 or 6 different ways here. We've come up with different ways to try to find ways to come up with additional pay, over the years with different incentives and different, bonuses and pay structures and things like that to help, bridge that gap. So this is another great tool for sure.
Now, we'll point out that we do have 23 teachers in the master's group, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, from that standpoint, so we just need to grow that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Mr. Director.
Next item that we have under our reports is our 2025 budget planning update. Ms. Kelly.
Are we to the next item yet?
Well, that was certainly a hard act to follow. All right, and good evening again. While we're still 5 months out from presenting a proposed 2025 budget that is balanced, tonight I'll provide an update on where we are in the 2025 budget development process. I want to first start by taking a look at where the district is at for 23-24. At the February board meeting, I presented some current year changes to revenue. Those are listed here under the projected revenues as changes. And tonight I added to it the additional $1.2 million in revenue that we're going to get from the teacher incentive allotment. The total revised revenue projections at this point are $119.4 million. And then also at the February meeting, I included the amended expenditures that were budgeted after the board approved the general pay increase this past October, which was after the budget was adopted. And so the budget was adopted with a deficit of $6.6 million. And then last month, based on the revenue adjustments and the amended expenditures, the projected deficit on paper was about $10.3 million. And so what I've presented here is an update on the projected expenditures so that we can get a better idea about how we're actually going to end this year. And so the October pay raise is on there that I shared in February. We now also have on the expenditure side the teacher incentive allotment of $1.2
$2 million that Ms. Neighbors shared we will be paying out in August, so that's part of this budget year. And then we adopted the budget with $3 million in budgeted contingency funds, of which we should have about $2.5 million unused, assuming nothing else comes up. So this is the final year for the federal ESSER funds, and right now there's an estimated remaining balance of about $1.5 million. And so given the budget challenges, I'm going to recommend that we utilize the remaining funds to supplement or supplant the general fund expenditures in the current year, which will minimize the deficit that we end the year with and preserve the available fund balance for us to make the adjustments to spending in future years. And so with those projected revenue adjustments and then the projected actual expenditures, right now, the deficit as of 8/31/2024 will be about $6.3 million. And so when we kind of factor that into what we have available in fund balance, the board has reserved, and we have legally restricted fund balance line items that total $29.9 million. And so that leaves an unassigned fund balance of about $53.9 million. The TEA optimum fund balance for our district based on adopted and amended expenditures for the current year is $37.5 million, and that's 3.5 months of operating expenditures. So that leaves, right now $16.4 million in excess fund balance. So if we end the year with a $6.3 million deficit, that will leave us $10.1 million of excess fund balance that we can utilize moving forward to balance the budget. And so when we talk about a $6.3 million projected deficit, there are a lot of factors that go in and contribute to the current deficit position that the district is in. However, the bottom line is that our revenues are tied to enrollment and attendance driven, and the last time the state provided an increase to the basic allotment was in 2020. So if we look at enrollment from 2020 to current, VISD is down over 950 students, which equates to about $5.9 million less in available funding. So during that same time period, the district has reduced 27 teacher positions, and that's a net reduction because we've seen a lot of adds in special education, but then we've been able to decrease where we've lost some enrollment. And so with 27 fewer teachers, that's an average savings of about $1.7 million. And then we're also paying teachers. The average teacher is paid $2,681 more per year. So when you factor that times the number of teachers we have, that's an added cost or increase in spending of about $2.2 million. And so when you combine all three of those things, that equates to $6.4 million funding gap. And that's right about where we're at. So there's a lot of movement, year after year, especially from 2020 to 2024. But when we're looking at a $6.6 million deficit in the current year, what's driving it is the loss of enrollment. Okay. So when we move forward to 2025, here are the adjustments. The budget assumption handout is at your table, and so we'll start with the revenue adjustments thus far. Total $2.9 million less in available revenue. These projections include a flat M&O taxable value base with a slight, and I mean slight, like less than half a penny, decrease in the M&O tax rate. Target revenue has been adjusted based on current enrollment and the weighted average daily attendance. Also decreased for a one-time new instructional facility allotment payment that we were eligible for from the state tied to the opening of the new Brazosport High School. And then we have an increase to cover the teacher incentive allotment factored into that. And then locally, the projected supplemental payments from our industry partners with 313 agreements are going to come in. Don't really know how much less, but I'm estimating about $1 million. So all of those things added up total $2.9 million in less available revenue for next year. And so the district is going to have to make reductions in order to present a balanced budget that leaves the district with a fund balance that meets or exceeds the optimum level. And so when we flip over to the expenditure side, to date, we have identified and are working towards $1.9 million in reductions. So quickly, I'll go through them. You've got a list of them in more detail. But moving Brazos Success Academy over to NAY will save about $81,000 from a custodial position, and then the utilities reduction. We have central office reductions right now totaling $96,000. We've got some campus staffing adjustments based on current staffing ratios and changes in enrollment that total $752,000. We are starting campus staffing meetings tomorrow, and so we'll meet with each campus principal one-on-one to review their campus needs and considerations related to these identified reductions. So this number could change, so it's just kind of our starting point. And then we have we're also reducing the supplemental pay by $80,000 related to the distinguished teacher pay at Lanier. This is just a budget to actual variance. It's not an actual reduction to anyone's current stipend. And then we've got campus discretionary allotments are enrollment based, and so due to the decline in enrollment, allocations have decreased by about $40,000. And then lastly, we have set a target to reduce all department spending, so discretionary and payroll, so anything that's not a fixed cost, by 5%. And so we'll be working through that with department leaders over the next couple of months. So when you, so all the identified reductions thus far are the $1.95 million. It is still only March, so we've got a long way to go. But then these reductions of $1.9 million are quickly offset with the 2024 general pay increase that the board approved in October, which was not budgeted in the adopted 2024 budget. And so that is an amount that we have to sustain, because that's the general pay increase, so we adjusted the schedule. And so in order to sustain that, we need to include that in the budget. And then also the $1.2 million that we anticipate paying out for TIA. And so this has a equal revenue amount, so the TIA is an equal revenue amount, so it doesn't impact the bottom line, but it is included as an expenditure. And so when you back out the TIA and you're just looking at the GPI and then the reductions we've identified right now, there's a net increase on budget assumptions and spending of about $850,000. So going the wrong way to start with, but we're going to continue to work. And so when we kind of go back or pull it all together and you look at $2.9 million in less revenue available, started with a $6.6 million deficit. We've got additions right now on the expenditure side. That puts our proposed deficit at $11.5 million. And so we do keep the $3 million in contingencies, and so if we don't use those, the actual deficit would be about $8.5 million. And so when we kind of go back to where we started in terms of fund balance, this is what you saw earlier, and you go back down to the general fund unassigned fund balance, 53.9 million, optimum is 37. In this year right now, we have 16.4. We're going to end the year with a 6.3, so that left 10.1 moving forward. So when you pull over that $11.5 million that we're at right now, we don't have enough in excess fund balance to be able to propose that budget and stay within the optimum. So we'd be less than the TEA optimum, and so we would either need to continue to make reductions or utilize some of the fund balance that's reserved in capital projects to balance the budget. And so the 2025 budget assumptions right now, with this $11.5 million deficit, does not factor in a general pay increase for 2025. And so the cost of a raise would need to be offset by additional reductions if we're going to present one for approval. And so as a district, we're committed to exercising fiscal responsibility to ensure financial strength. But we've also been able to prioritize funds to meet our goal of recruiting and retaining highly effective staff.
And one way we've been able to do this throughout the years is by ensuring we have competitive compensation. And so on the right-hand side, in 2018 and 2019, for teacher pay, BISD ranks in the top 5% of the state on average teacher pay. And so on the left side, you can see the percentage, the general pay increases we've given from 2018-19 to the current year that we're in. And, you know, it's a little hit or miss, but we have been able to utilize ESSER funds over the last 4 years to provide one-time retention and lump sum increases to kind of help offset the constraints that we were having on the general fund side when we weren't able to give, you know, anywhere from 0 to, you know, 2% for teachers only. And so we've strategically utilized some of that ESSER money, but at this point, this is the last year for those ESSER dollars to be used, and so there's not going to be that funding there to continue to provide these additional compensation increases. And so I share all of this just so you can see that we were in 2018 and 19 in the top 5% of the state, and with what we've been able to approve over the last few years, we're now in the top 13% of the state, which is still great and something we want to celebrate. But we do live in a region that is extremely competitive in the teacher pay area. And so I just want to make sure that we continue to prioritize compensation to ensure that we can continue to retain and recruit the teachers for our students. And then this is the revised 5-year projections. I've also put a copy at your table. The proposed 2024-2025 column, and then the current year projected updated as of today, we've already gone through. And so you can see the future years and what that does to fund balance, that bottom line. Every one of those years continues to get higher and higher in terms of the amount we drop below the TEA optimum. Those projections are based on current law, and so obviously as we head into 25-26, we'll have come into another legislative session, and let's hope that they actually pass a meaningful reform for school funding. So we might find some relief, but after this past session, I'm not going to hold my breath. So I want to make sure that we continue to be fiscally responsible and adopt budgets based on the resources we have available. So it is early. We still have some work to do, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on where we are to date.
I like your optimism.
Still approved out there, just have a bit of signs, right?
Yeah, keep that thought.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking on the previous slide on the compensation, I can just see the graphs. Yeah. My
Yeah.
favorite graph ever.
So the optimal fund balance that TEA sets, is that something we agree with, or is that set in stone?
Nope.
That,
So
I mean,
the board can adopt a local policy to set or establish guidelines for a locally, I guess, amount, like a local optimum level. I think one would argue, given that we live on the coast and could be prone to some hurricane natural disasters, that 3.5 months might not be enough. And so that is kind of the minimum that TEA sets, but you as a board could certainly set a higher optimum level if that's something we want to discuss.
Does it have to be approved by TEA?
No, sir.
But TEA can get a little picky at times if it gets down.
Or get too high.
Too high, yeah.
Too high.
Yeah,
So either way.
they're more concerned about too high than
Yeah.
too low, so, which is interesting.
Yeah, but it could affect first readings, and so
Right.
we want to make sure, yeah.
Yeah, the two things there is, one, they tried to legislate it out so that people couldn't hold money.
Yeah.
Two, there's last session. Two, they also tie the optimal fund balance to our first rate. It's the only thing it's tied to.
Yeah.
You know,
Which we received 20 years in a row.
what you said is true, and it's something, when we were the city, we tried to keep 6 months in a fund balance because, running a city, and I don't know that what we have is enough with today's prices to rebuild, despite insurance, and, you have a situation like that, teachers start to disappear all of a sudden, and so you gotta have all the, considerations, really set before you say, yes, sir, we do have enough, or no, we don't have enough.
It's a concern, but let's be honest too, if it's a catastrophic event,
Yeah.
citizens aren't gonna be here, industry's not gonna be here,
Yeah.
school's gonna be the least of our concerns at that point, right?
Yeah, and one of the reserve fund balances that this board took action to set aside from the general fund was $10 million to cover the insurance deductible that we would have if we had a catastrophic loss. And so, obviously, as insurance costs have continued to rise over the years, we've strategically tried to keep that premium budget neutral, and so we have reduced our coverage limits, but we still have enough set aside and assigned or reserved fund balance to cover that deductible. Anything we're underinsured, FEMA would, come in and also support. And so, as long as we can keep that insurance deductible reserved, I feel like we're covered in terms of, any losses we would experience related to, a storm.
You simplified
That
the,
designation for the 10 million kind of helped us on our fund balance at one time also. So.
For capital projects or insurance?
No, for the insurance.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah, we've had, our revenue, because of those 313 supplemental payments, has been kind of up and down and a little hard to project. And then on top of the student enrollment changes, it's extremely difficult to project, but.
you simplified your presentation and tied most of the issues to, reduction in students, but, I mean, for the people that are here, we've also had 40% increases in insurance and gas and all these things. Our number two budget item besides people is insurance. And so, which we've had to reduce over the years too as well to account for those crazy increases there. But there are a number of other, and we're on 2016, pay hadn't been adjusted or our allotment from the state hadn't been adjusted since then.
Yeah, we're on year 5 with no increase in the basic allotment.
Yep.
And so if it would have been, the basic allotment was indexed to inflation, we would be sitting on about $9 to $10 million more in available funding to cover the increased cost. And I've shared some information in terms of the inflationary impacts to the district that, we're faced with just like many
Every other
households.
district.
Yeah. But unfortunately, our revenue is tied to students and we
I
don't have.
understand,
And that's.
The increases in other areas hasn't helped us from a
Right.
production also.
Right. And the state is certainly sitting on, money that's appropriated
Yeah.
to legislate down to public schools, and they have failed to do that. So that's,
Which
it'd be
was
different if the
estimated-
state was in the same situation, but when they've got, $3-4 billion in their, 2-year budget to appropriate, and they just haven't done it, and districts, we're not the only one that's faced with this. Yeah, and so that's extremely frustrating.
I shared, I think, something with y'all not too long ago. Conroe did a $30 million budget deficit, so,
Yeah. Spring Branch was over 50. Katie was, I think, over a couple hundred.
Well, that's one of the things that probably need to work on for is financing based on enrollment. I know our friend from one of the creeks is not happy with that, but the thing is if you go to enrollment and an increase in allotment, then it works.
Covers itself, yep.
So, that's, I don't understand his position, but anyway, that's something that was not high on the list out of Region 4, but it was on the list. And I'll send you those so you can look at it and make comments on them.
And the approved money by the previous legislature this past summer was gonna net us somewhere between $3 and $6 million a year. That would include it this year, right, which is pretty close to our deficit as well. So, the fact that the state legislature has not done their job and, enforced vouchers as a tie to that, and not taking care of school districts is another big problem.
But unfortunately, the atmosphere of the election at this point,
No.
I'm not sure
Didn't help.
they're gonna get much done
No.
in the 2025 session.
All right, any other comments or questions from the board or the audience?
Yeah.
Way to bring us down.
Yeah.
Should've left you
Student
on
achievement was a
top.
lot, student achievement was a lot funner. Here comes bond construction.
Here comes.
Next agenda item we have is bond planning and construction update.
Alex,
I have a little bit brighter news. Good evening. In accordance with Board Policy CB Local, it is my pleasure to present the 2019 planning and construction update.
As of March 18th, we have total POs issued of $251.9 million, or approximately 86.47% completed or in progress. This is the rendering of the new addition at Brazosport CTE at the front of the building. And this is the phasing plan that you've seen several times, and we are continuing to move forward on schedule with getting this completed. The end of school is approaching very quickly. This is a drone shot that was taken Thursday before spring break, and this is showing the entire campus, and you can see the new front addition over on the left, and then the shop building behind that.
That shop is that long white one?
Yes, ma'am.
Huge.
It's very huge. And this is the front entry. We now have all the paving in place all the way around, and they've started doing a lot of the fine grading and stuff around the entire site. This is a closer view of the front.
Fine grading on our own land.
Sorry?
Fine grading onto our own land.
Yes,
No.
exactly.
There you go.
This is also the main entry. And then this is the shop building. The canopy that you see in the lower part, it's a little more than halfway across the building. It will be all the way across the entire building once we get the rear portion of the existing building torn down this summer. It's a closer view of the shop. This is in between the existing building on the left, which is the hallway that leads to the classrooms. And then that's a view of the shop yard, where they'll have material and their trailers and things, and deliveries as well. This is a ground level view of the front entry. And this is standing in the main corridor looking out towards the front. And then this is looking, standing in the front looking towards the back.
Straight to the bistro, that's
Exactly, right? to
Fun
the-
entrance, go back to the.
Right where the food is.
Important one.
This is in cosmetology. On the left is the plumbing for the hair wash stations. And then this is the styling stations. And this is the cosmetology classroom. And I confirmed today, the flooring was supposed to start going in last week, but it's going in starting today.
Do they just do hair, or do they make people look good?
No work,
If they
no
make
work
people look
miracles.
good, I'm gonna
No work miracles.
In your case, this here.
There's only so much they can do.
I think they do pedicures and manicures and facials too.
I probably
Yeah,
need, I
they do,
probably
yeah.
need a facial, but I don't think I need those others.
This is in, this is in the vet tech and floral area. And this is down on the ground at the shops. And that's in between, looking from the other direction. This is the main corridor that runs the entire length of the shop building, with on the left would be the classrooms and the group restrooms. And this is inside one of the welding shops, and you can see the cranes overhead that go in all different directions. The crane, it's really very cool. It travels around to different areas wherever they need to deliver some of the heavier material.
Really like the painted.
Yeah, I like the red.
Yeah, it looks really good.
It
It looks
is.
better in
Really
person, for sure. And this is one of the 4 classrooms. Each shop has its own classroom. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board, comments, Alice?
It's all.
From the audience? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other board committee reports from our board members?
So I will be attending the Legislative Advocacy Network meeting in April 20th. And I'll send you the priorities and reasons for along with state, let you guys comment on, so I can take it when I go.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
I think I'm fine. Next, Peggy?
No,
Our next, regular work session, will be scheduled for April the 15th, tax day, right here. Next
Maybe
thing-
later, get my taxes.
Next thing we have on our agenda is executive session. Executive session may be called for the purposes permitted by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071 through 551.006, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, Section 551.071 on any agenda item, Sections 551.72 for the purpose of discussing the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Sections 551.074, personnel matters, appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, dismissal, or complaint, and Sections 551.082 for the purpose of considering discipline of a public school child or complaint or charge against personnel. We will return shortly.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sure, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yeah. We will now reconvene from executive session at 8:51 by Google time. And unless there are any objections, then we will stand adjourned.
Adjourned.